let's look at the 5 most common type of sidings that look great on shipping container houses. Hi, I'm Larry Lane from liveinacontainer.com, and I have been exploring all kinds of cool siding that you can put on shipping container houses or any kind of buildings made of shipping containers. So let's look at all 5 of them and consider the pros and cons of each. Number 1 is wood siding. Now, wood siding costs about $7 to $14 a square foot. It's one of the more expensive types of sidings that you can choose. But the pros of it include that it is a very natural material and you can paint it just about any color you wish. It's also a very natural color, natural material, obviously. So if you want to express the grains onto it, then go ahead. You can do that quite well, especially with cedar type of siding. A lot of wood sidings are cut in different shapes, in different forms, and they're placed in different patterns on the side of the building, which also adds a lot of character to your shipping container building. Wood siding is also biodegradable. If you are tired of the color or whatever on a wood siding, paint it. Paint it a different color. You can do that with wood siding, where you can't with some of the other types of sidings we're going to talk about. The cons of using wood siding is, like we mentioned, it's a little bit more expensive than the other types of sidings. And also, every 2 to 7 years, you're going to need to repaint it. And if you don't maintain it, then it can actually crack. Also, bugs or squirrels can actually gnaw on the wood and make holes in there to where they'll crawl in and make a house in your shipping container house. You don't want to do that. In fact, if you do have a wood siding on your shipping container house and you do have holes where maybe a squirrel has actually made a hole and crawled in and made a house for themselves, make sure that you get an exterminator, someone that will carefully remove those animals so you're not closing up these holes and trapping these animals inside. I know, not a pleasant thought, but it happens. Be careful about that. Number 2, the second type of siding that is used with shipping container houses is vinyl. Vinyl is about $2 to $7 a square foot. It's going to be really one of your more economical type of sidings if you want a less expensive choice to put onto your shipping container building. Some of the pros of using vinyl siding include it's easy to install, it's readily available also in most any construction supply stores anywhere around, and it's actually easy to maintain. You don't have to paint it. In fact, you don't really want to paint a vinyl siding. Instead, you want to power wash it to keep all the dirt away from it, and that'll keep it clean and longer life. Speaking of life, that's another big advantage because vinyl siding will last you 20 to 30 years if you keep it nice and clean and maintain it well. Some of the cons of vinyl siding is that if you don't maintain it and if the sun hits on it, then it can actually dry out and start cracking. Another problem with the sun is it can actually change the color of your siding and bleach it out, make it a different color than it was intended, maybe even a different color than it is on the darker side, less the side of the building that doesn't get as much sun. And speaking of paint colors and the colors of the siding, you don't want to paint it. So whatever color you choose to put on your shipping container building with vinyl siding, you better pretty much like it because it's going to stay that way for the entire duration of it being on there because you don't want to paint it. And also, vinyl siding is really not eco-friendly. It's a petroleum-based product and it doesn't recycle very well. There are methods to recycle vinyl. It's got PVC in it. It's very expensive to recycle, not often done. Then it gets thrown away into these big dumps, and it's not biodegradable like the wood siding, so it's not a very eco-friendly material to use. The third type of siding is composite or fiber cement type of siding. Now, the pros of this is, well, it's kind of the middle of the range price. I'm going to call this a pro because it comes out to around $10 a square foot. And the another pro of it is it takes really minimal type of maintenance. It's really, really durable, and I'll talk about that in a second. It really doesn't need a lot of painting or any painting at all, but we'll talk about that too. It could be a con, I'll talk about that. But let's say it doesn't need a lot of painting, so that is a pro. And another pro is that there's a huge selection of different colors and all kinds of styles that look awesome on the outside of a shipping container building. So check it out. You can go on to websites and actually you can go to liveinacontainer.com, and it has all kinds of examples to see kind of what might be best for your shipping container house. I just mentioned something about the durability. That is one major pro for the composite fiber cement type of siding. It's so durable. It won't warp. It won't rot. And the pests, like I was talking about with the wood siding, the pests don't really have a chance to be able to gnaw on it and to make holes and burrow inside behind the siding to make it their home. It's very durable that way. It's also salt resistant. So you can build your shipping container next to a beach. It'd be a beach house. Oh man, you got to invite me over to your beach house if you use a shipping container to build one, because I got to see it. But anyway, if you do have a composite type of siding on the side of your beach house, let's say, then it's very storm resistant. With all the salt water pelting on it, it resists that very well. And one reason is because this composite fiber cement board is made of mainly sand and cement products. So that gives it a lot of durability, and it leads to another pro. It's very fire resistant. So it's a good selection to look into if you want to put siding on your shipping container building. Now, there are some cons. I had to look far and wide for them, but I came up with two that kind of stand out. The first one is that fiber cement board, they're more heavy. They're heavier than the other type of sidings that you're going to be looking at and considering for your shipping container building. So because they're heavy, it will require more equipment in order to kind of move it around to get it to the different parts of your construction site, which will cost more money if you're going to be renting different equipment to do that type of work. So it could be a little bit more expensive to install because of that. And the other one, I mentioned paint. And this is kind of a stretch, but there is somewhat, even though the cement board oftentimes have a 15-year warranty for the color, and by the way, they have a 50-year limited warranty for the other part. That makes it pretty cool because it's so durable. But because the paint sometimes will fade, and you might have to repaint it. Okay, big deal. You're gonna have to repaint a wood siding every 2 or so years. This is nothing. If it lasts 10 to 15 years within the warranty, I think you've got a pretty good selection. Also, leave a comment below. Let me know if you found any kind of sidings that work best for you. And if this article is helpful for you, give me a thumbs up. And let's move on to the next type of siding. So the fourth type of siding you might want to consider, believe it or not, is metal. Now, why would you want to put a metal siding outside of a metal shipping container building? Well, I'll answer that. There are some really cool metal sidings that doesn't have that corrugated look, some do, And it has more of a flat or all kinds of different textures and different shapes and sizes that kind of add to that industrial look that you already have with your shipping container building. It is kind of cool. We're actually using some metal panels from a company called Atus in buildings that I'm designing in my office for some municipal buildings. But I think it would look kind of cool on a shipping container building if you want to consider it. Some of the pros about using metal is that it has an industrial look. It looks really cool. And there's different colors that are available. You can also get the metal paneling in different kind of metals, such as aluminum or copper. I've done another building with copper. I had to make sure, and you need to be careful with this too if you use copper, is that copper is a very noble material in the chart of chemistry and stuff. And so it will corrode against other materials, particularly aluminum. So you don't want to get those two together. You would have to work with other copper materials or zinc or galvanized, or those work okay. Not great, but better than aluminum, or with stainless steel. So there's some complications on that, and I'll call that maybe a con using some of the metals. Now, I really don't have any other cons, but I do have a word of caution about metals if you were to use a metal type of siding for your shipping container building, and that is stay away from the aluminum clapboard looking siding, the type that looks like wood siding, the type that used to be in a lot of buildings that now are using the vinyl siding, that kind of look, you know what I'm talking about? Well, those aluminum type of sidings are expensive to repair or replace. They dent and the color fades. It's just not a good selection. So go watch the movie Tin Men and get your feel for aluminum siding for that type of thing, but don't put it on your building. Now, the fifth type of siding you might want to consider for your shipping container building is the composite wood. It costs about $10 to $15 a square foot. Now, the pros of composite wood siding is that it's durable. Another one that I've heard, another pro I've heard about composite wood siding is that it's energy conscious. I'm not totally convinced by that because the caveat is it all depends on what kind of insulation is behind that composite wood siding. By the way, if you want to learn a little bit more about insulation for the shipping containers, go to the video that I have posted for that too. Now, another issue about the composite siding, which I call a con, is that it is kind of expensive. You know, the $10 to $15 a square foot, it's more expensive than what we've already discussed in some other types. And also, I've heard that the colors can fade. With the sun, the UVs of the sun, it'll fade out, and it's not as attractive set of colors in my opinion. I think that you can find nicer colors with other types of siding. And then lastly, and the last type of con I have to offer you is it's heavy. So it could also increase on your installation cost. So those are the 5 different types of sidings available for shipping container homes. Now, if you're curious, how do you install a siding onto a shipping container building? It can be a little tricky because you don't really want to screw those in through the siding of the corrugated sides because you would lose your waterproofing that the shipping container is designed to already have in there. So how do you install siding onto a shipping container? Well, go to liveinacontainer.com and read the article about that. I'll leave a link of it down below. Write a comment down below also and let me know what kind of sidings you may have found that you would like to have for your shipping container home. Also, if this video was helpful for you, give me a thumbs up and also subscribe below so that you can join me in exploring all the cool things you can build with shipping containers.